Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search specializes in helping small law firms in Texas hire lawyers and build great teams. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel here back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. Before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that the Varsity Podcast Network is expanding, and we are looking for lawyers and law firms who are interested in building their profile through podcasting. So if you or someone you know might be interested in creating a podcast, would like to learn more about that, how it's done, and if we might be able to help you with it, email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com. All right, today we head to Austin, where our guest is Kevin Mosley. Kevin is a partner with Grotefeld Hoffmann, a mass tort litigation firm with offices in California, Illinois, Florida, Oregon, and Minnesota, in addition to here in Texas. Kevin's practice focuses on insurance subrogation, as well as product liability, civil litigation, and intellectual property. All right, with that, let's hop into our conversation with Kevin Mosley on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Kevin Mosley joins us now. And Kevin, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. And it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate you inviting me and look forward to visiting with you today. Absolutely.
Well, let's start off by talking a little bit about what's happening in your world as it relates to COVID-19 and what you're seeing. I want to, for context and the audience, for when you're listening to this out there, we're recording this May 21st. And so we're kind of in the beginning reopening phases of the state of Texas. And so that's kind of the stage we're at here. You might be listening to this quite a bit later. So, Kevin, what's going on with COVID-19 on your firm right now?
Well, we're all still remote, virtual, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Nobody's in the office. I say that of our 8 offices, well, we have 7 physical offices. We have a small operation in Florida that we work with a local counsel on. So really 7 offices are all work from home currently, have been, since the better part of March.
Right.
And we have, each of our offices has a weekly video call every Friday morning. And we kind of go over the, state of the affairs of what's going on with COVID in our area and statewide and nationwide. And, we kind of talk with the ownership about, timelines to reopen and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And right now, our firm really is blessed to have great leadership in place that really does and continues to say and continues to follow the science of what's going on. And is not going to look to politics or anything else besides safety and the science, before reopening.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And that makes sense. And I will ask you a little bit about kind of the compilation of your firm. You mentioned the different offices around the country. We'll talk about that here in a moment, because I'm sure that can have an impact on how different places are treating this. What about from your clients? What has been the impact on them? What have their needs been in the last month or month and a half in terms of what legal services they need, or just in general, kind of the communication that you've had with them? What has it been like with the clients?
So I primarily practice in subrogation, insurance, related world, on the plaintiff side for the most part. So we're prosecuting cases. I'd say first and foremost, that's actually being able to prosecute a case has slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Not being able to hop on a plane and go take a deposition or attend a hearing, or, with a lot of courts being closed or quasi-closed, that's certainly impacted the progress of cases, but, not to a great extent. I mean, we're still resolving matters and pushing matters, and, people across the firm have done virtual depositions and virtual mediations. So, it's 2020. I mean, we've had this technology here for a number of years. I think I did my first virtual deposition, over 10 years ago. So this
Right.
this technology does exist. And I guess, to answer your question, a lot of our clients have already worked from home. They either work from home full time, or they have an office, but they work from home, several days a week. And I think, for them, it's kind of a brave new world. I mean, just dealing with the attorneys,
Right.
because a lot of us, have physical offices and have had to adapt to this. But I think the clients have been really understanding that we can't do certain things right now, or at least we have to adapt to do certain things. And they've been patient in understanding that things aren't going to move at a blistering pace like they were before.
Sure. Yeah.
I think maybe we're seeing a few less losses from what I do. I don't know if that's because everybody's staying at home, so you're not seeing as many fires and floods and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it is picking back up, it seems, as things are kind of starting to reopen.
Yeah. Yeah. Since you've mentioned a couple of times the fact that we've had the technology for a while now in terms of being able to do a lot of our work by video and conference call and all that, what do you see as something that, when we return to whatever normal looks like after this passes, that what do you see that will stick with us as a legal community, as law firms, as lawyers, that will just become maybe not the dominant way or complete way that we do things, but will become much more of a typical way that we do things?
I think, and I hope that some of these old school mentalities and policies of, hey, you're not getting your work done if you don't have your butt in at your desk by 8:30 or 9 or whatever. I think people are kind of relaxing those policies a little bit, in that thinking, and seeing that you can do things, work from home and be productive.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully people will kind of take this time to think about what's, not to be proverbial, but what's kind of important in life, and being home with your family, and your career is not the end all and be all. I think it's going to put a little bit more humanity in society and in the legal profession. And I've seen a lot of, it's attorneys get a bad rap a lot of times, but I will tell you, just about every call or email that I've seen or been involved with during this pandemic, people care. They're like, hey, first and foremost, how are you?
Right.
How's your family?
Yeah.
And I think that's really brought out a lot of the caring side of people, just putting the human element in it. So, I think moving forward, that's not necessarily technology, but
Yeah.
I think that's something that will be a sticking factor.
Yeah, well, and I hope you're right. Yeah, just the way that we relate to one another as people, as professionals. Hopefully, there can be some good that comes from that. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little about that, and do want to transition now just to talk a little bit more generally about your firm and your practice. You mentioned the insurance subrogation work, and that the firm is all over the country with an office there where you are in Austin. So tell us a little bit about the firm, the makeup, and kind of more a little bit about your practice.
Yes, we're primarily insurance subrogation. It's not all we do, but it's the main bread and butter of what we do. We do have some coverage in defense practice groups in some of our offices. But yeah, seven offices nationwide, headquartered in Chicago. Heavy West Coast presence. What certain practice groups in our firm do is specialize in wildfire recovery, wildfire litigation. Mm-hmm. And we often are, the head of prosecuting those cases nationwide. Obviously, a lot of that in recent months and years has been out in California with the devastating wildfires out there. But that's actually, wildfires are kind of what brought our group to Texas. So
okay,
they were back in 2011. You remember all the fires in Bastrop and Spicewood, Steiner Ranch. We've had a few since then as well. And there wasn't really we didn't feel that there was a big presence, not only in Texas, but in Austin, in subrogation and, in wildfire recovery teams. So we kind of saw an opening, and Mark Grotefeld, founder of our firm, and Anush Thakrar, one of our partners, and I came down, It wasn't in 2011, but we started coming down then, and we were down here all the time.
Yeah.
It seemed like we were practically living here, and so Mark said, well, hey guys, I'm going to take up full-time residence in Austin, and would you guys like to come with me? And yeah, I'm a native Texan. We were all in Chicago at the time, which is where I was in law school and practiced. But for me, it was a no-brainer. Come home. I've had family here, and so that's kind of the story of this office. But yeah, nationwide we have we don't have a lot of attorneys. We're probably in the 35 to 40 attorney range. Spread out over 7 offices. So we kind of just have little pockets of attorneys in some of our offices. Yeah.
And that's an interesting and pretty unique, I would say, setup in a lot of ways. You see kind of the firms of your size or smaller that are primarily in, either one city or a couple cities, but all in one state, versus the mega firms that are kind of all over and have hundreds or thousands of lawyers. And yeah, you guys are kind of in a unique niche in the way that you're set up. And I think that's really cool and kind of gives you the ability to, like you were talking about, pick up, there's wildfires down here. Let's go and set up shop here and take over this market, and allows you that flexibility to do that as a small firm, be able to kind of make decisions like that essentially without a board that has to decide or something. Mark just says, let's do this, and then all the resources.
There's a lot of autonomy. There's a lot of autonomy. In the offices, but that said, the offices work together a lot and play off each other. So it's a good setup.
And in Austin, how many lawyers are in the Austin office at this point?
Well, that changes officially tomorrow. I think that officially changes tomorrow because one of our associates, I believe, is actually right now as we speak en route from Chicago. He's moving down here to Austin.
So we're going up one.
So I think tomorrow during our weekly call, we will have gone from 5 attorneys to 6.
So Chicago's down one. So
yeah, Chicago's down one.
Awesome. Well, is there anything going on within the practice in terms of just things that are either changing or kind of top of mind or top of the list at CLEs on subrogation or fire stuff? Like what's sort of the people in your practice area talking about at these types of events, or kind of what are the issues at hand?
Yeah, I think something that we've seen recently, and at least that I've seen recently, maybe this goes back to a number of years with regard to wildfires, and specifically in California with these very large ones. You have a lot of policy issues within the state, counties, specifically where you have large utilities that have caused fires. I guess managing of that, bankruptcy, creditors getting in line, insurance companies recovering money that they've paid out. It's all hot topics, and it compounds itself when you have billions and billions of dollars in losses. So that's something that we've seen. That there's been cries left and right that insurance companies are the bad guy. That's what the insurance is for, and they're out there trying to seek money to recover.
Right.
But subrogation, what we do, it's cyclical. When we recover, people get deductibles, money back in their pocket. The premiums go down. It keeps premiums down if you have a loss. So there's a lot of societal benefits to it that I think people just don't think about in the moment.
Yeah. As you maybe think back to some of your early years in practice, what are 1 or 2 things that you recall from those years that were important to forming who you are as a lawyer that you feel are key components to having a successful practice?
I think communication and relationships really are key, and that's something that I've tried to implement in my practice. Not only with your coworkers, your colleagues, which is very important to listen and rely on people, but at your clients, opposing counsel, just anybody you deal with. I think to really take an interest in who that person is and what their point of view is, and to just, I guess, kind of be it's you don't have to be adversarial all the time, I guess.
Yeah.
In this profession, and I think I've kind of taken that to point. I think over the years, because you see a lot of that, and that's kind of the old school, approach is you got to just beat somebody up,
Right.
But I think a lot of times if you can, be more congenial with them, I think you can go kind of a further place.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you've progressed throughout your career, is there anything that you picked up later on that you wish you had known or wish someone had told you as a young lawyer that you'd like to maybe pass along or share?
Yeah, I think slow down. When you kind of come out of law school and you get your first job, you're nervous. You want to excel at everything, and I think sometimes we just kind of are too fast at our pace. Not only in a professional career, but it kind of hurts your personal life a little bit. And I think just slow down and kind of rely on others, rely on your support staff, rely on other attorneys. Don't think that you know everything. I think that's the biggest thing that you see, because there's people out there that have 10, 20, 30 more years experience than you have, and have probably come across the same situation or the same legal issue. You don't need to reinvent everything. Yeah.
I think that's really good. As you have observed young lawyers over the years, associates within your firm, or maybe even across the table, or with other firms or other lawyers that you've run across, what are some ways or some things that associates, young lawyers, can do to make a positive impression with their partners at the firm?
There's a number of things across the board, but I think in young professionals, one thing that I particularly look for and like to see is the ability to kind of take the next step. An example of that is if you ask somebody to go research a particular topic in the state jurisdiction, they'll just come back and give me the answer. If that answer requires drafting a motion or some type of pleading or something like that, go ahead and take that initiative, because you should be thinking, well, if the result is X, then we're going to need to do this next. I think a lot of associates, in young lawyers, just kind of, they get an assignment. They're not really married to the process. It's just, okay, let me complete that. What's next? I think rather than investing, in that particular case. Yeah. And I think a lot of times you can also show, and we see this particularly with wildfires in our firm. Some of the younger associates that have really shown, an interest in the area is once they have an opening, hey, research this issue, or can you draft something on this? They really, the ones that want to kind of stay in these practice groups, they really do that. I see that they really invest, in that particular case, and will come to me and say, hey, listen, this is very interesting. What else can I do? I'd really like to, stay focused on this, and be on it moving forward. And it's really something I'm interested in. So I think speaking up a lot. I like to call it kind of measured deference. Yeah. You don't go into something with a more experienced attorney, especially something that you're new at, acting like you know everything. But at the same time, you want to show some interest.
Yeah, I think that's really good, and I'm kind of laughing a little bit because, and I just pulled it up because I wanted to share it. So earlier today, again, we're recording this late May, or mid to late May, but I actually posted something on LinkedIn based off of last week's podcast interview guest. And several people had shared the same thing, but basically, I'm just going to read it because it's almost echoing in a different way what you just said, which is law firm partners like their associates to be thinking of the bigger picture rather than just their own narrow project or assignment, and anticipate what the partner might need next. That issue could be spotting. Maybe you spot an issue while you're doing your project, or a ruling comes down that impacts your project, or maybe there's amended pleadings from the other side. The list is endless. Make it a goal to pair excellent work on your project with anticipating the next one. And so like what you just said about if you do something that is, oh, we're going to need to draft this, to just go ahead and draft it.
Yeah. You stated it a little more eloquently than,
no,
than
I don't
I
think
did.
so.
But.
Well, I was compiling like 8 of you into one. So I was picking, choosing, and putting it together. But no, it really is that anticipation of what might be needed next, or kind of taking a little broader view from just kind of your own specific assignment. It seems to be a consensus. Yeah.
Yeah. Even, taking it beyond that, I know there's going to be a hearing on this or a deposition coming up on this. And, I've helped prepare for that. Do you mind if I attend? Do you mind if I participate?
Yeah.
I think it's, and the partner's going to, if it's something that's in too deep water for the associate, the partner's going to be there to protect them.
Sure.
But I think it always shows drive that you're wanting to do something new.
Yeah.
I love it when I'm in, the first hearing for an associate or the first deposition or something, where I'm there with them. It's really rewarding, I think, because you can remember when you were in those shoes.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Okay.
And just a further point on that, I think, just being prepared to take the next steps. I can tell you that we personally, in our firm and in the Austin office, have hired law clerks that have shown that initiative and that drive.
Yeah.
It's gotten them jobs, or at least job offers.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think that's something that's very important.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because I do want to ask you about a couple of questions related to hiring and some of the things that you all look for and that are keys for you. So let's talk about that. When you are going through the process of hiring, and I think most of the folks listening to this are already in practice, so it's not coming out of law school necessarily, but if you're maybe considering someone who's been out a year or two and maybe a lateral type of situation, what are some things that are key that you're looking for on paper in terms of the resume, or maybe it's a cover letter, transcript, or writing sample? What are some things that are from a positive side that you're really hoping and wanting to see, and maybe what are a couple of red flags that give you concern?
Yeah, I think anybody, when you're hiring, you don't have a lot to go off of, right? You have a piece of paper, a writing sample, whatever it may be. And I guess initially, just at that step, you want that to be polished. I think everybody, you don't want typos and spacing issues and, that kind of stuff. Consistency,
Yeah.
And we, a lot of times most of our attorneys were law clerks with our firm, and we kind of bring them up through the farm system,
right,
so to speak. It's not, always the case. Sometimes we have laterals that come in, but, I think a lot of times and I run our law clerk program here in Austin, as I think you know.
Yeah.
And we've placed a few of your people in the past,
right,
who've been great.
Yeah.
So our firm is Grotefeld Hoffmann. Hoffmann is spelled with 2 F's and 2 N's. And I can't tell you, it seems like every other resume we get has 1 N on there, or misspells Grotefeld, or even misspells my last name.
Yeah.
And so I tell people that are going through those resumes, some of the younger associates that help run the program, call those out if they're not taking enough time and to polish that up and make sure that things are properly spelled. Pull them.
Yeah.
They're not going to get past the first step there.
Yeah.
But then I think beyond that, once you, like I said, you have the paper that you look at, and then if that kind of passes the test and you want to bring somebody in, you really only get, you get maybe 1 or 2 interviews,
Yep.
maybe they're 30 minutes, 45 minutes, not a ton of time with people. So what I look for in that, people are nervous. Especially, kids that are in law school or whatnot, or young associates, but I really look for, the eye contact. What we do is we're litigators.
Yeah.
You're going to be taking depositions. You're going to be in court. I think eye contact shows respect. I think it shows confidence, not looking around the room. That's one thing just for me personally.
Right.
But, I don't really like, so that's positive. Something I don't like, is where they try to anticipate, what your question is, kind of start talking before it's kind of like a deposition, right?
Yeah. Right.
Start talking before you finish. And I really appreciate it when people, take a second to kind of analyze the question and really give a thoughtful response, rather than having some, trying to have some preconceived answer. That's another thing. And then and I think final pet peeve for me and others in the firm that we've seen in interviews is you have, law school students that are coming as law clerks, and some of them think they're lawyers already, or they're litigators.
Right. Right.
I love litigation. Well, you don't really know anything about litigation. Law school doesn't really teach you.
Yeah.
all that much about practicing.
Right. It's they feel like, I think they have to know exactly what they want to do at such a young age or at an early point in their career. And I think that it's a distinction almost between like stating what you think you might be interested in versus what you know.
Right.
And I think sometimes that line gets crossed and does what you're talking about. I also think it's interesting you mentioned about how on the resume side anyway that the whether it's the misspelling of a name or something like that can have your resume pulled from the stack. It was my experience that when I was working at the law school that with law students I feel like think that when we would say things like that from a career development standpoint, that we were sort of giving like just a scare tactic or kind of like, oh, that's the exception. But so I appreciate when you say it, because more and more, when I hear lawyers actually say, no, we pull them out. if they have these errors in them, we don't even look to see whether they would have otherwise been the perfect candidate or something like that. They don't even make it to the next stage. That's real. And so candidates, whether law students or lawyers, lateraling, whatever, have to take that seriously and have to spend the time on their documents, just like they would on a brief
Exactly.
or something like that. I mean, it's going to be looked at in a similar light, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about work product. And like I said, that piece of paper, you get the resume, that's the first thing you see. So if there's, it seems basic and it seems petty. Hey, you misspelled my name.
Right. Right.
See ya. I've got a pile of 50 people here.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So yeah, it is real. And it seems like something that people just say, but I literally, it seems like every other resume I get has some type of typo in it.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I'm glad I wanted to just kind of circle back on that you mentioned, just so folks listening hear it again, because I think it's really important, is that element of the listening to the interview question and taking that extra time, second or whatever, to pause. I do think that candidates in general feel like, even if maybe they're not crossing that line of talking over the interviewer, they do feel they are feeling like they can't allow for any break of silence in between the question and the answer. And so therefore that forces them to almost have to start kind of tuning out the question and start to formulating the answer before the question ends. And I think that is a mistake. I think you're right. And I think that that extra second or two pause is a very positive thing. And it shows that you were listening to the question and are taking the extra second or two to formulate a response that's going to meet the question. And that's really good. I think that's kind of nuanced, and I don't know if everybody thinks about it, but I think that's a real edge that candidates can get in the interview process. Yeah,
I agree. It shows that they're measured.
Yeah.
I think it shows preparedness. Honestly,
Yeah.
They can prepare themselves to think about what is it you're asking. Some people may say that's a sign of weakness. I don't see it as that way. It's, certainly as lawyers, when we're defending depositions, and even when we're taking depositions, it's always nice when you have somebody who thinks about the question before just spouting something out.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, and even a deposition is a good example too. If you're already kind of thinking of the next thing and you may miss something that the witness is saying that would completely change what your next question might be, or there's so many things you might miss if you're already kind of thinking of the next question before it's over. So I think that's really, really good.
And I think just to tie that up a little bit, I think beyond that, another thing I like to see is they not only think about it, they're measured before they reply, but I think it's good to kind of not turn the question back on the interviewer, but just kind of, well, what's your experience with that? Answer the question and, what are your experiences with that? Or what did what are your thoughts on that? Or, how does that impact you, the firm, that kind of stuff. It really shows that you're engaged in the interview.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think because oftentimes it's funny, and I think this is in some ways can be a critique that I would even give to interviewers at times, because one of the things they might say after an interview is, that just seemed very rigid, and it was just question and answer, and we didn't really get into a groove or a dialogue or a conversation. And a lot of times that's on the interviewer for kind of not setting that structure up. But at the same time, the candidate can drive that by doing what you just said. And by kind of tossing a question back at the interviewer, can create that back and forth, more conversational dynamic, even if the interviewer, intentionally or not, wasn't setting up kind of that framework in terms of the way the interview was set up. So I think that's a really good way to do that, and also allows for the candidate to show, again, preparation and genuine interest in what the interviewer's experience is, what the interviewer thinks about something. It's just a more, I think more dynamic and more interesting conversation in an interview than a traditional just question answer. Well, we are winding down our time here. It's gone fast, but before we get to our rapid fire questions to end our time, is there anything that we haven't talked about yet, or that I haven't asked you about, that you'd want to share with the young lawyers in the audience?
Oh, I could talk all day, but no.
We're lawyers, of course.
I feel for them, and I wonder kind of what the next steps are with everything that we're going on right now, especially for lawyers that just graduated. That pass the bar, or those that will be soon.
Right.
What the market's going to be, and how the practice is going to kind of transition until we get a vaccine or figure out a cure or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wonder on that. I wonder a lot, and I feel for them, and I hope that there are jobs, and that we can figure out ways to transition them into employment.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely a concern and a question on everyone's mind right now, not just in our profession, but across the country. And so, I think the last group to go through this in 08, 9, 10, 11, are probably good resources right now for encouragement, for ideas, for tips. So young lawyers, I'd look at a few people maybe in your alumni base or whatever that kind of came out during that challenging time. I think that's a good resource, and there are others, but no, that's good. And we're all thinking about those young lawyers out there for sure right now.
Yeah. I was part of that. I was 08 graduation class for law school. So
yeah, no, it was a difficult time for sure. Well, we've got some rapid fire questions to end our time. If you're ready, let's go to that.
Sure.
All right. Name one trait or characteristic that you most want to see in an associate.
Humility, probably.
Yeah.
Out of the gate.
Good. What habit has been key to your success?
I touched on it earlier, but I think relationships, this day and age with social media and whatnot, and computers and email and everything, it's easy just to fire off an email or text or whatever. But I think it goes a long way, especially, with your clients, pick up the phone, or even, not right now, but hopefully soon, get on an airplane and go have lunch with them or something like that.
Sure. No, but yeah, building those relationships. Favorite app or productivity tool?
I use Google Docs a lot right now.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know this is a kind of roundabout way to answer your question, but productivity tool for me, I have to have at least a little bit of time every day where I just try to decompress. And for me, I have this game that I'm obsessed with. It's called Wordscapes.
Oh, okay.
Right on your phone.
Yeah.
You kind of descramble words and stuff. So just, something, just to relax a little bit.
Sure.
I think that makes you more productive.
Yeah.
Especially while you're at home all the time.
No, that's good. Absolutely. Everybody needs to find something for that. No doubt. Maybe this is the answer to that question. The next question also, favorite social distancing activity. No wordscapes.
It's not playing games. No. Peloton.
There you go. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, I should look that up. But what the sales of those types of products are over the last month or so?
They actually went up. I haven't looked at their stock in a while, but I sent a message to a couple of our partners, because a lot of us got Pelotons when this hit.
Yeah.
And I said, man, when I bought my pellets, and I wish I would bought the stock, because it was, I think it was like $19 or something. And then it was, last I looked, it was like 30 or 40.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty much doubled.
Wow.
But no, I joke with people when, if I don't get my workout in just about every day, I kind of go crazy.
Yeah.
And when all the gyms shut down, and before that, when this all hit kind of mid-March, a lot of people were going to buy, toilet paper and that kind of stuff. And, everybody was running out of it. Well, I was stocking up on gym equipment. So I have a pretty nice garage home gym.
That's awesome.
Now. Yeah. So that's probably my favorite activity.
That's great. Yeah. We, our big purchase was really for the kids, but it was a digital piano, so they can start learning piano. And the digital piece is key because they can plug headphones into it. And so you don't have to listen to it when they're playing it. That part's key.
That's the best feature.
Yeah, best feature. Keep those plugged in. Lastly, favorite legal movie?
I'm not a big movie buff. I'm more of a musical guy, but probably Lincoln Lawyer. I like that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
McConaughey, your UT guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of reminds me of how I am sometimes when, before this COVID stuff, I was on the road. It just, seems like a different city every day. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, we did a deep dive into the Lincoln Lawyer on this show about 2 or 3 months ago. So it's in the feed right now. If any of you are Lincoln Lawyer fans and want to go back and listen to us break that one down, because we like that movie a lot. So yeah,
I'll have to go check that one out.
That was a good suggestion. So awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you again for taking the time to be with us. Appreciate it, and stay healthy, and best to you and the firm and everybody. Really, really appreciate it.
Hey, Daniel, I appreciate you inviting me, and best of luck with your newish adventure.
Appreciate it.
All right, my thanks again to Kevin Mosley for joining us on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing 2 things? First, would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And second, would you rate and review the podcast in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts? Also, don't forget, if you or someone might have interest in launching their own podcast or a podcast for their firm, maybe, let us know. We might be able to help, as well as put it on our expanding network of podcasts. You can email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com. All right, that's it for today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for listening. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.